My name is Marcus Bennett, and the day I became rich was the day I learned I was poor. It happened in a glass tower on the 47th floor of downtown Seattle, in a conference room that smelled like leather and old money. My cousin Jessica sat across from me, her manicured nails drumming on the mahogany table. Her brother Ryan slouched beside her, already calculating auction estimates on his phone. Their parents, my Uncle Gerald and Aunt Deanne, occupied the head of the table like royalty surveying their kingdom. And me. I sat in the corner with my mother, Ellen, both of us in our best thrift store business casual, trying not to look as out of place as we felt. The lawyer, a dried-up man named Harrison Finch, cleared his throat and began reading from my grandfather's will. Captain Theodore Bennett, decorated naval officer, successful investor, philanthropist. The obituary had made him sound like a saint, but I remembered him as the grandfather who taught me to identify seabirds when I was 8, who sent me hand-drawn maps for my birthday, who disappeared for months every year to places nobody talked about. To my son Gerald Bennett, Finch droned. I leave the estate at Mercer Island, the investment portfolio at Cascade Capital, and the vessel collection at Shilshal Marina. Gerald nodded, already victorious. Jessica squealed, Ryan grinned. To my granddaughter Jessica Marie Bennett, the trust fund established in her name, currently valued at $1.4 million. Jessica was already on her phone, probably messaging her 800,000 Instagram followers about her windfall. To my grandson Ryan Alexander Bennett, partnership shares in Bennett Maritime Holdings and the Lopez Island property. Ryan actually fist pumped, actually. And to my grandson Marcus Theodore Bennett. Everyone turned to look at me. I felt my mother's hand find mine under the table. I leave one maritime compass, brass antique, previously belonging to the HMS Resolute, and a sealed letter of instruction. Finch slid a folder across the table. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a compass green with corrosion, its glass cracked like a spider web, and underneath it a note in my grandfather's angular handwriting. True north isn't on any map they'll ever read. Trust the needle. The game isn't over. The silence lasted maybe 3 seconds before Jessica started laughing. Not politely, not covering her mouth, just full-throated, cruel laughter. "Oh my God," she managed between gasps. "A rusty compass, that's perfect, that's so perfect." "Grampy finally put a price tag on you, Marcus," Ryan said, leaning back in his chair. "About 350 at a pawn shop." Now, Aunt Diane said with poisonous sweetness. "I'm sure it has sentimental value. That's worth more than money, right, Marcus? Isn't that what you always tell yourself?" Uncle Gerald wasn't even looking at me. He was already discussing renovation plans with Finch, talking about modernizing the estate, about resale values and market timing. My grandfather had been dead for 6 days, and Gerald was already erasing him. My mother squeezed my hand tighter. I looked down at the compass. The needle was moving, but not toward magnetic north. It pointed southeast, steady and deliberate. I turned the compass. The needle swung back to the same position, southeast, always southeast. They saw junk, I saw a question. I taught biology at Cascade Community College for $38,000 a year. My apartment was a studio in Belltown with a bathroom so small I had to sit sideways on the toilet. I drove a Toyota with 180,000 miles and a passenger door that wouldn't open from the outside. By my family's standards, I was a catastrophe. By my own standards, I was doing work that mattered. The night after the will reading, I sat at my tiny desk with the compass in front of me and my laptop open. The funeral had been sparse, maybe 40 people, most of them Gerald's business associates paying respects to a name, not a man. My grandfather had been a ghost for the last 20 years, appearing at Christmas maybe every third year, always leaving early, always distracted. Uncle Gerald said he'd become a recluse after my grandmother died. Said he'd lost his edge, lost interest in the family business. But my father, Theodore's younger son, had told me something different before he died. My dad, Nathan Bennett, had been a marine researcher. He died 12 years ago, tangled in illegal fishing nets while documenting coral destruction off the Hawaiian coast. He drowned trying to save something beautiful from people who only saw profit. The last time I saw him alive, he told me that grandfather Theodore was working on something important, something that would change everything, something he couldn't talk about yet. Then Dad died and Theodore disappeared even more completely. I'd always thought it was grief. Now I wasn't sure. I measured the compass angle against a map on my screen, southeast from Seattle. The trajectory crossed the Pacific, passed through the region near Samoa and the Cook Islands. I zoomed in on the satellite view. The line pointed to a small island, barely visible, unnamed on the map. But when I increased the resolution, I could see structures, buildings, a dock, something man-made. My phone buzzed, my mother. "Did you eat dinner?" she texted. "Not hungry," I replied. "Come over, I found something." 20 minutes later, I was in her small house in Greenwood, sitting at her kitchen table while she made tea neither of us would drink. She set a cardboard box in front of me. NATHAN, personal EFFECTS, was written on the side in marker. "NOAA sent this after your father died," she said quietly. "His dive logs, research notes. I couldn't look at it for years, but tonight I did, and I found these." She spread a series of waterproof notebooks across the table. My father's handwriting covered the pages, coordinates, sketches of coral formations, notes about illegal trawling operations. And on the last page of the last notebook, circled 3 times, coordinates, the same region the compass was pointing to. "He was investigating something," my mother said. "Something connected to your grandfather. I found letters they'd exchanged, encrypted emails. They were working together on something, a project they called Sanctuary." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because it got your father killed, Marcus. I don't want it to take you too." I looked at the compass, then at my father's notes, then at my mother's tired, frightened face. She'd worked as a librarian for 30 years, raised me alone after Dad died, never complained, never asked for anything. And here she was, terrified I was about to chase the same obsession that had killed her husband. "What if it's important?" I asked. "What if it's dangerous?" she countered. That night I barely slept. I lay in my narrow bed. My father's watch on my wrist stopped at 2:47 the moment he died, and thought about legacies. What had my grandfather really left me? Not money, that was clear. Jessica got wealth. Ryan got assets. Uncle Gerald got power. And me? I got a puzzle. But Theodore Bennett had been a chess player. A serious one, the kind who thought 15 moves ahead. He taught me the game when I was 10, and the first thing he'd ever told me was this: the piece that looks weakest is often the one that wins the game. Dean Patricia Morrison called me into her office 3 days later. She was a good person trapped in a bad situation, trying to run an underfunded college where half the students worked full-time jobs and the other half were one emergency away from dropping out. "Marcus, I need to know your plans," she said, not unkindly. "I heard about your grandfather, I'm sorry, but we're already stretched thin. If you need leave, I need advance notice." "I might need to travel," I said. "For family reasons, maybe 2 weeks. Unpaid. I don't have a choice." She sighed. "We don't have coverage. If you leave, I cancel 2 sections. That's 40 students who need this credit to transfer to a 4-year school." "I know. So what's more important? Whatever you're chasing, or the students who are here right now, counting on you?" It was a fair question. I thought about Jenna, a single mother of 3 who sat in the front row and took notes like her life depended on it because it did. I thought about David, a veteran with PTSD who told me my class was the first place he'd felt calm in years. I thought about all of them, working so hard for so little recognition, trying to build something better. Then I thought about my father, drowning in illegal nets. and my grandfather spending 30 years building something secret, and the compass pointing to a place nobody in my family knew existed. I'll take the risk, I said. That afternoon, I taught my last class before leaving. We were discussing ecosystems, how small changes cascade through entire systems, how removing one species can collapse a food web. The thing about ecosystems, I told them, is that the most important elements are often the ones you don't see. The microbes, the fungi, the tiny fish that feed the bigger fish that feed the birds. If you only measure value by size, you miss everything that matters. A student raised her hand. "Mr. Bennett, are you okay? You seem different." "I'm going on a trip," I said, "to see something I should have seen a long time ago." My mother drove me to the airport at 5 in the morning. We sat in her car outside the terminal, neither of us sure what to say. "Your grandfather left me a letter too," she said finally, pulling an envelope from her purse. "Finch gave it to me at the reading. I opened it yesterday." Inside was a cashier's check for $10,000 and a note. "Ellen, send Marcus where he needs to go. Don't let Gerald know. The boy has his father's courage. Time to see if he has his grandfather's patience." "He was planning this," I said, "for years." "I know," she wiped her eyes. "Your father used to say Theodore was playing a game none of us could see. I think you're about to find out what game it was." We hugged in the pre-dawn darkness. I shouldered my backpack and walked into the terminal. Seattle to Los Angeles to Samoa. Departure in 3 hours. I'd never been farther than California. Never needed a passport until 6 months ago when I'd thought about teaching abroad. Now I was flying into the unknown with a cryptic compass and my dead grandfather's riddle. The plane lifted off just as the sun rose over the Cascades. I pressed my forehead against the window and watched Seattle shrink below me. Somewhere down there, Jessica was planning her next influencer post. Ryan was calculating investment returns. Uncle Gerald was renovating a mansion. And me? I was following a needle that didn't point north. Samoa hit me like a wall of heat and color and life. The air at Failalo International Airport was thick, almost liquid. Everything smelled like salt and plumeria and rain that hadn't fallen yet. I'd never seen water that blue, never felt air that alive. The woman at the information desk had never heard of Matavai Island. Neither had the taxi drivers or the hotel clerks. But an old man at the market, selling hand-carved tikis, narrowed his eyes when I mentioned the name. "That's Captain Ray's Island," he said. "Protected place, private, why you asking?" "Captain Ray was my grandfather." His face transformed. "Your captain's blood, you have proof." I showed him the compass. His weathered hands trembled as he held it. "I know this compass. He showed me once, said it was for someone special, for the one who would understand." He looked up at me. "You understand?" "I'm trying to." He sent me to the docks, to a fisherman named Tala who'd known my grandfather for 30 years. Tala was repairing nets when I found him, his hands working automatically while he talked. "Captain Ray saved my life," he said simply after I'd introduced myself. "Not dramatic, just saved it. 25 years ago my boat was failing. I was failing. Had 5 children, no money, no hope. He bought my boat, hired me to work for him, paid me 3 times what I'd been making. Sent my kids to school. 2 of them are doctors now because of him." "He never told us," I said. "His family, we thought he was just distant." "He was protecting something," Tala said. "Protecting it from people who would ruin it. He talked about his son Gerald sometimes. Said Gerald was a good businessman but a bad steward. Said he'd turn paradise into profit and call it progress." The words hit hard because they were true. Gerald would have monetized anything. Everything had a price tag in his world. "Will you take me to Matavai?" I asked. "For Captain Ray's grandson. For free, it's honor." The boat ride took 3 hours. Tala didn't talk much, just pointed out islands and reefs, told stories about storms. But an hour from Madavai, he turned serious. What you're going to see, it's sacred. Captain Ray built something there, something that matters more than money. People have been waiting for you. Waiting for what? For the next guardian. Captain said someone would come. Someone with his son Nathan's heart and his own stubbornness. Someone who'd understand why some things need protecting. The island appeared gradually, emerging from the haze like a dream solidifying. Not a resort island, not developed, just alive. Dense rainforest, white beaches, coral reefs visible through impossibly clear water. And as we got closer, I saw them. Buildings integrated into the landscape, solar panels, docks, a research vessel moored in a protected bay. A carved driftwood sign marked the entrance. Cross Marine Sanctuary, established 1995. Three people waited on the dock. A large Samoan man with a warm smile. A woman with intense eyes and sun-darkened skin. An older Filipino man with gentle hands. They watched me climb out of Tala's boat, and somehow they knew who I was. Marcus Bennett, the Samoan man said, extending his hand. Welcome home. I've never been here, I said. Your grandfather disagreed. He said you'd been coming here your whole life. Just took a while to arrive. I'm Kai Mathafa. This is Dr. Alina Vasquez, our director, and Tamaz Cruz, who's been cooking for Captain Ray longer than I've been alive. Alina stepped forward. She had a scientist's directness, no wasted movement or words. Theodore spoke of you constantly, she said. He was waiting for this moment, for you to be ready. Ready for what? To see what he actually built, what he actually valued, what he left for someone who would understand. They led me up a path into the compound. The buildings were beautiful, sustainable architecture that worked with the environment instead of dominating it. Solar panels and rainwater collection systems, open-air laboratories with state-of-the-art equipment, dormitories and classrooms, a library with walls of windows overlooking the ocean. And everywhere photos, not the stern, formal portraits from my grandfather's Seattle mansion. These showed a different man. Theodore with his sleeves rolled up, covered in reef mud, grinning. Theodore teaching children to identify fish. Theodore with my father, both in wetsuits, both young and alive and happy. I stopped in front of one photo. My father and grandfather, arms around each other, standing in front of a newly constructed building. The date stamp said 1998, 2 years before Dad died. Your father visited, Alina said quietly. Only once, but Theodore said it was the best month of his life. Nathan understood what Theodore was trying to do, approved of it, encouraged it. They were planning to work together when. She didn't finish, didn't need to. The illegal fishing operation, I said. That's what killed him. That's what he was investigating when he died, Kai confirmed. Operations that were destroying reefs throughout the Pacific. Theodore spent the next 20 years trying to finish Nathan's work, to protect what Nathan died trying to save. We stopped at a small cottage set apart from the main buildings. Simple, clean, with a hammock on the porch and a chess set visible through the open door. This was Theodore's home, Alina said. When he was here, this is where he lived, not the mansion in Seattle, this. The cottage was spare and perfect. A bed, a desk, bookshelves lined with marine biology texts, poetry collections, chess strategy guides. The chess set on the table had a game in progress, pieces frozen mid-strategy, and on the nightstand a leather journal. We haven't touched anything, Tamaz said. He left instructions. Everything here is for you. I opened the journal with shaking hands. The first entry was dated June 1995, 3 months after my grandmother died. Margaret is gone. The Seattle house feels like a tomb. Gerald is already talking about estate planning, about maximizing returns on my investments. He means well, but he doesn't understand. He sees resources. I see responsibility. I can't save Margaret, can't bring her back, but I can do something that matters. I've bought an island. I'm going to build something real. I flipped through pages, detailed plans for the sanctuary, calculations for sustainable systems, sketches of buildings, lists of species to protect, and scattered throughout notes about me and my father. Nathan understands. He came to visit, spent a month here diving the reefs, documenting everything. He said this is the most important work I've ever done, said he wants to help. We're planning a joint project protecting coral reefs throughout the Pacific. He's working the research side, I'm working the funding and infrastructure side. Together, we might actually make a difference. The next entry was dated 6 months later. Nathan is dead. Illegal fishing nets off Hawaii. He was investigating operations that were destroying reefs and they killed him. Accident, the report says. I don't believe it, but I can't prove anything. Can't bring him back. Can only finish what he started. This sanctuary isn't just for marine life anymore. It's for him. It's his monument. Every reef we save, every species we protect, that's Nathan's legacy. Not the one Gerald will understand. The one that matters. I had to stop reading. My hands were shaking too hard. Tamaz brought water. Elena gave me space. Kai just stood nearby, sobbing. When I could breathe again, I kept reading. Years of entries, expansion plans, research breakthroughs, partnerships with universities and governments, UNESCO consideration for World Heritage status, and woven through it all, notes about his Seattle family. Gerald called, wants me to invest in his new development company, wants to use the family name for branding. I told him no. He doesn't understand why I'm wasting money on environmental nonsense. He thinks I've lost my edge. Good. Let him think that. As long as he thinks I'm a senile old man giving away his fortune, he won't look too closely at where it's actually going. Jessica graduated from Yale, celebrated by posting photos of herself with designer handbags and champagne. Didn't invite me, didn't expect her to. She's Gerald's daughter, values what he values. I'm the embarrassing grandfather who doesn't understand that success means luxury brands and social media metrics. Ryan launched his real estate company, already talking about flipping properties, about quick returns and minimal investment. He treats homes like commodities, treats everything like a commodity, including family. He calls once a year, usually when he needs advice about money, never about anything that matters. Then I found the entries about me. Marcus graduated college. Ellen sent photos. He looks like Nathan. Same thoughtful eyes, same gentle intensity. He's teaching at a community college. Gerald said it's a waste of his degree, that he should aim higher. Gerald doesn't understand that Marcus is aiming exactly where he should. He's teaching kids who need someone to believe in them. That's not a failure. That's integrity. Marcus published a paper on coral reef restoration. Read it 3 times. He has Nathan's mind, Nathan's heart. He sees what matters. I want to tell him about this place. Want to bring him here, but not yet. He's not ready. And Gerald would find out, would try to claim it, would destroy what I've built. I have to wait, have to be patient, have to trust that when the time is right, Marcus will find his way here. The last entry was dated 3 months before Theodore died. My heart is failing. Doctor says months, maybe a year if I'm lucky. I'm not afraid. I've had a good life. Built something that will outlast me, but I need to make sure it goes to the right person. Gerald will contest any will that doesn't favor him. He'll tie up the estate in legal battles for years if he thinks there's money to be gained. So I'm giving him what he wants, the appearance of wealth. The mansion, the yacht collection, the investment accounts. Let him think he won. Let him discover too late that it's all debt, all mortgaged, all empty. And Marcus, I'm giving him a puzzle, a compass that doesn't point north, a riddle, a test. If he has Nathan's courage and my patience, he'll solve it. He'll find this place. And when he does, he'll inherit what actually matters. Not things, not money, but purpose. The sanctuary, the work, the legacy. It's a gamble, but chess taught me that the most important move is often the one your opponent doesn't see coming. Gerald thinks he's won. Marcus thinks he's lost. But the game isn't over. It's just beginning. I closed the journal and sat in silence. Elena finally spoke. There's a video. He recorded it for you. 3 months ago, before he went back to Seattle. He knew he was dying, said if you made it here, you deserve the full truth. They led me to the sanctuary's main library. A large screen, chairs arranged around it. Staff members I hadn't met yet were gathering, researchers, educators, conservation workers, a community. Alina pressed play. Theodore appeared on screen, sitting in this cottage, afternoon light streaming through the windows. He looked thin, but his eyes were clear and sharp. Theodore's recorded face filled the screen, and I saw my grandfather clearly for the first time. Not the distant figure from holiday dinners, not the stern portrait in the Seattle mansion, but the man who'd built a secret kingdom of purpose while his official family chased shadows of wealth. "Hello, Marcus," he began, his voice stronger than I expected. "If you're watching this, you solved the puzzle. Good, I knew you would." He leaned forward, hands clasped. "I owe you an apology. Many apologies. I was cold when you were a child, distant during your teenage years, absent during your father's funeral, which was unforgivable. But I had my reasons, and I hope you'll understand them by the end of this message. Your Uncle Gerald is my son, and I love him, but he's a vulture, Marcus. He sees everything as an asset to be maximized. He would have turned this place into an eco-resort within a year, monetized it, branded it, destroyed everything that makes it sacred. So I kept it hidden. From him, from Jessica and Ryan, from everyone who couldn't see past profit margins. The will you heard in Seattle, that was theater, a performance, the mansion, mortgage to the hilt, the yacht collection, leased not owned, the investment portfolio, leveraged debt. I spent years carefully constructing a facade of wealth while quietly liquidating my actual assets. I let Gerald think I was a senile old man making bad investments, and he believed it because it confirmed what he already thought, that I'd lost my edge. But I hadn't lost anything. I just changed what I was building. 28 years ago, I sold my shipping company, sold my real estate holdings, converted everything to liquid assets, and I built this. He gestured around him. The Cross Marine Sanctuary, 2,000 acres of protected reef, a research station that partners with 12 universities, an education center that's trained over 300 local conservationists, a living system that generates knowledge instead of profit. It cost me $42 million to build. It costs $3 million annually to operate, and it's worth more than every dollar I ever made. I'm leaving it to you, Marcus, not because you're my blood, though you are, not because you deserve it, though you do, but because you're the only one in the family who might understand what it actually is. You've spent a decade teaching kids who can barely afford community college. You've published research nobody paid you to do. You've chosen meaning over money at every turn. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. The second will is with Harrison Finch. He'll present it after Gerald discovers the truth about his inheritance. The sanctuary, the endowment, the trust, it's all yours with conditions. You must live here for 1 year, learn the work, meet the people, understand what you're inheriting. After that, you can choose to stay or appoint a successor. But the sanctuary must continue. That's non-negotiable. Gerald will come for you. When he realizes he inherited debt instead of wealth, he'll come looking for the real money. He'll threaten. He'll manipulate. He'll try to claim that I was mentally incompetent, that you influenced me, that the will is invalid. Don't let him intimidate you. The sanctuary is protected by international treaty, by UNESCO designation, by Samoan law. He has no claim. But more than that, don't let him make you doubt yourself. You're ready for this, Marcus. You've always been ready. You just didn't know it yet. Your father died protecting oceans. I built this place to finish his mission. Now it's yours, not as a burden, as an opportunity, the chance to do work that will outlast both of us, the chance to prove that some things matter more than money. One last thing. On the shelf behind you, there's a book, blue cover, Coral Reef Ecology. Inside the front cover, you'll find letters from your father to you. He wrote them during his visit here, intending to give them to you when you were older. He never got the chance, but I kept them safe. They're yours now. I'm sorry I couldn't be the grandfather you needed when you were young, but I hope I can be the one you needed now. Trust yourself, Marcus. Trust this place. Trust the people here. They're your family now. The family you choose, which is always stronger than the family you inherit. Checkmate, my boy, checkmate. The screen went dark. Nobody spoke. I sat in the silence, tears streaming down my face, and felt the weight of 30 years of strategy settle onto my shoulders. My grandfather hadn't abandoned me. He'd been preparing me, teaching me through absence to value presence, teaching me through poverty to value purpose, teaching me through isolation to value community. It was the cruelest and kindest gift I'd ever received. Alina handed me the book. Blue cover, worn spine. Inside, 3 letters in my father's handwriting, addressed to Marcus when you're ready. I couldn't read them yet, couldn't handle any more revelation. Instead, I looked around at the faces watching me. Kai, Alina, Tamaz, a dozen others I hadn't met yet. Strangers who somehow felt like home. I don't know if I can do this, I said. You don't have to know, Kai replied. You just have to start. They gave me 3 days before expecting anything. 3 days to walk the island, to read my father's letters, to understand what I'd inherited. I spent the first day just existing, sitting on the beach, watching the ocean, letting the reality sink in. My father's letters were profound and simple. The first one was written when I was 10. Dear Marcus, I'm on an island your grandfather built. It's the most beautiful place I've ever seen. Someday I hope you'll see it too. I hope you'll understand why work like this matters more than money or success or any of the things people chase. The ocean doesn't care about our ambitions. It just keeps being itself, keeps creating life, keeps providing. All we have to do is protect it. Remember that. Love, Dad. The second letter, written when I was 15, was longer. It talked about choices, about integrity, about the difference between a career and a calling. It ended with, your grandfather and I are going to change how we protect oceans. It's going to take decades, but it'll matter, really matter. If anything happens to me, I hope you'll finish what we started. The third letter was dated 2 months before he died. I almost couldn't read it. Marcus, you're 20 now, studying biology. I'm so proud. Your mother says you want to teach, and that makes me even prouder. Teaching is holy work. But I want you to know about this place, about what your grandfather built, about what we're trying to do. If you're reading this, something probably happened to me. Don't be sad. I died doing work I believed in. But please, please finish it. Find the sanctuary. Learn from Theodore. Protect what needs protecting. Make your life mean something bigger than yourself. I love you. Always, Dad. I read that letter 7 times, sitting in my father's favorite spot on the reef, 12 years too late to tell him I understood. The second day, Alina gave me a crash course in marine conservation. She was brilliant and demanding and completely unimpressed by my community college credentials. She showed me the reef restoration projects, the coral nurseries, the species tracking programs. She introduced me to researchers from Australia, Costa Rica, Japan. She explained the political complexity of maintaining protection status, the constant pressure from fishing companies and developers, the delicate balance between conservation and community needs. Your grandfather didn't just build a sanctuary, she said. He built a model, proof that protection and prosperity aren't opposites, that you can save ecosystems while providing jobs, education, opportunity. But it requires constant vigilance, constant defense against people who see only short-term profit. People like my uncle, I said. Exactly like your uncle. The third day, Kai took me out on the research vessel. He was teaching me the practical side, boat maintenance, dive protocols, equipment management. But mostly, he was telling me stories. Captain Ray found me at my lowest point, he said, checking dive tanks. I'd lost my fishing boat to debt, lost my pride, was drinking too much, fighting with my wife, couldn't look my kids in the eye. He offered me a job, not charity, a job, made me work harder than I'd ever worked, made me learn things I thought I couldn't learn, made me believe I was worth something again. He looked at me directly. That's what this place does, Marcus. It saves ecosystems, yes, but it also saves people, gives them purpose, gives them dignity. My daughter Leilani, she's 16. She's going to Stanford next year on a full scholarship paid for by the Sanctuary's Education Fund. Named after your father, she's going to be a marine biologist. She's going to continue this work. That's legacy. That's what your grandfather understood. Money dies with you. Purpose outlives you. On the fourth day, Harrison Finch arrived by plane from Seattle, carrying 2 briefcases and a grim expression. "We need to talk," he said. Finch spread documents across the library table like a general displaying battle plans. Bank statements, legal filings, property assessments, the anatomy of my grandfather's 30-year strategy. "The Seattle estate is in foreclosure," he began. "The banks are seizing it. The yacht collection has been repossessed. Turns out they were all leased under contracts that terminated upon Theodore's death. The investment portfolio Gerald inherited is currently worth negative $2 million. It's leveraged debt, carefully accumulated over 15 years. Your grandfather borrowed against every asset, then invested the borrowed money here." He gestured around the island. "Gerald is threatening to sue. Claims Theodore was mentally incompetent, that you manipulated him, that the will is invalid. He's hired a team of lawyers. He's making noise about fraud." "Can he win?" I asked. Number Theodore was meticulous. Every transaction documented. Every decision made while demonstrably competent. Multiple psychiatric evaluations over the years proving mental clarity. And the sanctuary is legally untouchable. It's a recognized nonprofit protected by international treaty, owned by a trust, not an individual. Gerald has no standing, but he'll try, and it'll be ugly. Elena leaned forward. "What does Marcus need to do?" "Nothing. Let them rage. Let them file motions. The legal structure Theodore built is airtight, but Marcus needs to understand they're going to come here. Gerald, Jessica, Ryan, they're going to come looking for the real money. They're going to try intimidation, manipulation, maybe even sabotage. They need to be ready." "Ready how?" I asked. Finch looked at me with something like respect. "By being who you are, by refusing to negotiate, by understanding that you didn't steal anything, you inherited what you earned, and by trusting that Theodore knew exactly what he was doing." That night I couldn't sleep. I sat on the cottage porch, looking at stars brighter than any I'd seen in Seattle, and thought about my family. Not the family I'd been born into, but the family I'd found here. Kai and Alina and Tamaz and Leilani, and all the researchers and educators and conservationists who'd made this place their purpose. My phone had no signal, but occasionally the satellite internet picked up emails. One was waiting from my mother. "Gerald called," she wrote. "He's furious. Says Theodore cheated him, says you're in on some scheme. I told him he was being ridiculous, but he wouldn't listen. Marcus, please be careful." He sounded desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. Another email was from Jessica, shockingly. "I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I was horrible at the will reading, I'm sorry. Things have fallen apart here. My trust fund is frozen, legal complications. My sponsors are dropping me because the family name is toxic now. Ryan's business is collapsing. Dad is talking about bankruptcy. I don't understand what happened, but I saw the article about the sanctuary, about what Grampy really built, and I don't know, I thought you should know we're coming to talk to you. Please don't shut us out, we're still family." I read that email 3 times, looking for manipulation, for hidden agenda, but all I heard was confusion and maybe, possibly, the first honest thing Jessica had ever said to me. They arrived 5 days later. I was in the marine lab analyzing water samples when Kai found me. His expression told me everything before he spoke. "Your uncle's here, and the others chartered a boat from Samoa. They're at the dock." Alina appeared in the doorway. "Do you want us there?" I thought about it. Part of me wanted an army, wanted to face Gerald surrounded by people who believed in this place, who would defend it. But another part, the part that was maybe starting to understand my grandfather's strategy, knew this confrontation needed to be private, at least at first. "Let me talk to them alone," I said, "but stay close." I walked down to the dock with my heart hammering. Gerald stood there in dress shoes and slacks, completely unprepared for the island's humidity. He'd lost weight. His face was gray. Ryan stood beside him, angry and sweating. And Jessica, in designer clothes that were already wilting in the heat, looked smaller than I remembered, more human. "Marcus," Gerald said, and I heard the desperation underneath the authority he was trying to project. "We need to talk, now." "Then talk." He looked around at the sanctuary buildings, at the research vessel, at the solar panels and sustainable infrastructure. His face twisted with something between admiration and rage. "This is where it all went," he said. "This is what he spent our inheritance on, a goddamn jungle science project." "It's not a jungle," I said quietly. "It's a sanctuary, and it wasn't your inheritance. It was his money. He could do whatever he wanted with it." "He was my father," Gerald's voice cracked. "I spent 40 years building the family business while he disappeared to this fantasy land. I earned that inheritance." "No," I said, and the clarity in my own voice surprised me. "You earned exactly what you valued: status, appearance, wealth, and that's what he gave you, the appearance of wealth. The mansion was always just a stage. The yachts were props. The portfolio was smoke. You got exactly what you cared about, nothing real." Ryan stepped forward, fists clenched. "You think you're better than us. You think being poor makes you noble. You're just a community college teacher who got lucky." "I didn't get lucky," I said. "I got tested. There's a difference." Jessica spoke for the first time, her voice small. "Can we see it, the sanctuary, what Grampy built?" Gerald and Ryan turned to stare at her. "Jess," Gerald started. "No, Dad, I want to see it. I want to understand why he chose this over us." I looked at her, really looked. Her Instagram-perfect makeup was smudged. Her designer clothes were practical for travel, not for show, and her eyes, for once, weren't performing for an invisible audience. "Okay," I said, "come with me." I gave them the tour Alina had given me. The coral nurseries where we were rebuilding damaged reefs. The education center where local children learned marine biology. The research labs where scientists from a dozen countries studied ecosystem restoration. The library filled with published papers, with data, with proof that protection works. I introduced them to Kai, who told his story without shame. To Leilani, who showed them her Stanford acceptance letter and explained how the sanctuary's scholarship fund had made it possible. To Tamaz, who'd worked for my grandfather for 28 years and considered him the best man he'd ever known. Gerald stayed silent through all of it, his face unreadable. Ryan looked increasingly uncomfortable, like he was seeing something that challenged everything he believed. But Jessica asked questions, real questions, about the coral restoration process, about the economics of sustainable conservation, about how my grandfather had balanced protection with community needs. We ended at my father's memorial, a plaque on the main research building. "In memory of Nathan Bennett, 1967-2010, he died protecting what he loved. This work continues his mission." Gerald stopped there for a long time, staring at his brother's name. "I didn't know," he said finally, so quiet I almost didn't hear it. "I didn't know Dad built this for Nathan." "For Nathan," I said, "and for everyone who believes that some things matter more than profit." We walked to the cottage. I showed them my grandfather's journal, though I didn't let them read the entries about themselves. I showed them my father's letters. I showed them the chess set, the game still in progress. Gerald sat down heavily on the cottage steps. He looked older than his 55 years, older than my grandfather had looked in that final video. "He won," Gerald said. He played us all and he won. The mansion, the yachts, the accounts, all of it was bait. He gave us exactly what we wanted, knowing it would destroy us. And he gave you this, knowing it would save you. It's not about winning or losing, I said, sitting beside him. It's about what you build with the time you have. Easy to say when you got the real inheritance. Is it? I met his eyes. You got 45 years of your father's name, his business connections, his social standing. You got the easy path. I got the hard one. I got the test. You tell me who was luckier. Ryan was packing, agitated. This is bullshit, philosophical bullshit. We're ruined, Marcus. Actually ruined. Dad's declaring bankruptcy. I lost everything to creditors. Jessica's trust fund is gone. And you're sitting here on a private island with a $40 million operation like some kind of eco-warrior saint. How is that fair? It's not fair, I agreed. But it's just, there's a difference. Jessica had been quiet, walking around the cottage, touching things carefully. She stopped at a photo of my grandfather teaching a group of children to identify fish. He looks happy here, she said. I never saw him look like that in Seattle, not once. She turned to me, and her eyes were wet. I don't think he hated us, she said. I think he was trying to teach us something, and we failed. We failed so badly that he had to take everything away to give us a chance to learn. Learn what? Ryan demanded. That we're empty, she said simply. That everything we valued, the followers, the brands, the status, it's nothing, it's performance. And when it's gone, we're just empty. But Marcus isn't empty, he never was, that's why Grampy chose him. The silence that followed was profound. Gerald looked at his daughter like he was seeing her for the first time. Ryan stopped packing, his anger deflating into something more like grief. I don't know how to fix this, Gerald said finally. Don't know how to be someone different. I'm 55 years old. I've spent my entire life building things to own instead of things to matter. How do I start over? I thought about my grandfather's journal, about his chess strategies, about the long game he'd played. And I thought about what my father would have said. You start by doing something real, I said. Something that doesn't benefit you, something that just matters. Gerald laughed bitterly. Like what? I'm broke. I'm unhireable. Nobody wants to touch the Bennett name now. I have no skills except making money, and I can't even do that anymore. The sanctuary needs a logistics coordinator, I heard myself say. Someone to manage supply chains, coordinate with vendors, handle procurement. It pays $48,000 a year. It's hard work. Long hours, no prestige, but it's real. Everyone stared at me. You're offering me a job, Gerald said, after everything. I'm offering you a chance, I corrected. The same chance Grampy gave you with the will, the chance to choose something different. You can take it or not, but if you take it, you work for it. No shortcuts. No family privilege. You answer to Alina and Kai, not to me. And if you try to monetize this place, if you even think about turning it into a profit center, you're gone immediately. Ryan made a disgusted sound. That's insulting, That's more than I deserve, Gerald interrupted quietly. He looked at me. Why would you do this? Because Grampy believed people could change. I'm not sure I believe it, but I'm willing to find out. Gerald stood slowly, extended his hand. I shook it. I'll think about it, he said. I can't promise anything, can't promise I won't screw it up, but I'll think about it. They left on the afternoon boat. Jessica hugged me before she went, a real hug, not a performance. She smelled like expensive perfume and desperation, and maybe the beginning of something honest. Thank you, she whispered, for not being cruel. You had every right to be. Cruelty isn't strength, I said. Grampy taught me that, eventually. I watched their boat disappear into the distance. Alina came to stand beside me. Did you mean it, she asked, about the job for Gerald? I don't know, I admitted. Maybe, if he actually wants to change, if he can. And if he can't, then he'll fail. And at least he'll fail trying something real instead of succeeding at something empty. She smiled. You're starting to think like Theodore. I'm starting to understand why he was so lonely, I said. 6 months passed. Gerald surprised everyone, maybe especially himself, by accepting the job. He arrived with 2 suitcases and a humility I didn't know he possessed. He worked. Actually worked. Kai said he was learning, that he had good instincts for systems and efficiency, that he complained sometimes but never quit. Victoria left him after 3 months, couldn't handle the downgrade from mansion to shared housing. But Gerald stayed. He wrote to my mother that he felt like he was learning to breathe for the first time in decades. Ryan bounced between gig jobs in Seattle, still bitter, still chasing quick money. But Jessica did something none of us expected. She started volunteering at an environmental nonprofit in Washington, using her social media platform to promote conservation instead of consumption. She called me once a month, asking questions about the sanctuary's work, trying to understand what she'd missed. I'm not expecting redemption, she told me during one call. I know I wasted years, but I'm trying to be someone different, someone Grampy might not have been ashamed of. He wasn't ashamed of you. I said, he was just waiting for you to be ashamed of who you'd become. There's a difference. My mother visited in the spring. She stayed for 2 weeks, swimming in the reef where her husband had worked, reading his letters in the cottage where he'd written them. She and Gerald had a long conversation I wasn't part of. When they emerged, both had been crying. Your father would be so proud of you, she told me on her last night. Not because you inherited this place, because you understood why it matters. I'd found my rhythm by then. Co-directing with Alina, teaching classes to local students, diving the reefs, writing papers, defending the sanctuary's protected status against constant pressure from development interests. It was exhausting and fulfilling, and exactly what I was supposed to be doing. Kai's daughter Leilani started at Stanford that fall. She video called me from her dorm, crying happy tears, thanking me for continuing my grandfather's work. I told her the work was hers now too, that she was the next generation. That legacy wasn't something you inherited, it was something you became. One evening, exactly 1 year after I'd arrived, I sat on the cottage porch with the chess set. I'd been studying my grandfather's game for months, slowly understanding his strategy. Finally, I saw it. The move he'd been setting up. The final piece. I moved the knight, checkmate in 3 moves. Alina found me there at sunset, 2 beers in hand. Solved it, she asked. Finally, he sacrificed his queen, his wealth, to position his knight me for the final move. The entire Seattle inheritance was a distraction, a misdirection. While Gerald was counting his windfall, Grampy's real strategy was already complete. Checkmate. And what was the checkmate, she asked. What did he actually win? I thought about it. About my father's memorial. About Kai's transformed life. About Leilani at Stanford. About Gerald learning to value purpose over profit. About Jessica finding authenticity. About this sanctuary protecting 2,000 acres of reef and training hundreds of conservationists, and proving that protection and prosperity aren't opposites. He won time, I said. He bought this place 30 more years of protection, 30 more years of research and education and preservation, and he built a system that will outlast all of us. That's the checkmate, not defeating Gerald, defeating the idea that everything has a price. Alina smiled. He'd be proud of you. Maybe, but I think he knew exactly what would happen, knew I'd come here, knew I'd understand, knew I'd choose to stay. He played a 30-year game, and every move was calculated. Even this conversation, even us sitting here right now. It was all part of the strategy. Does that bother you, being a piece in his game? I looked out at the darkening ocean, at the sanctuary lights coming on across the compound, at the research vessel rocking gently in the bay. I thought about my students, about the reefs we were restoring, about the legacy I was becoming part of. No, I said, because I'm not just a piece anymore, I'm a player. And the game he started, I'm going to finish it, going to expand it, going to prove that what he built wasn't just a sanctuary for marine life but a model for how humans can live, with purpose instead of profit, with stewardship instead of ownership, with legacy instead of luxury. That's ambitious, Alina said. That's necessary, I corrected. We sat in comfortable silence, drinking our beers, watching the stars emerge. Somewhere in Seattle, Gerald was video conferencing into a sanctuary planning meeting, contributing ideas, learning to think beyond quarterly returns. Jessica was posting about coral bleaching to her remaining followers, finally using her platform for something real. Ryan was still struggling, still bitter, but at least no longer pretending his emptiness was success. And my mother was home, reading my father's letters for the 100th time, finally understanding what her husband had died for. My phone buzzed with a rare signal, an email from Harrison Finch, subject line, "Final business." I opened it. Inside was a scanned letter, dated 1 week before my grandfather died. Marcus, if you're reading this, you've stayed the full year. You've understood what I built and why it matters. You've chosen purpose over easy money. You've proven yourself worthy not of wealth but of responsibility. That's harder and more important. The sanctuary is fully yours now. No more conditions, no more tests. You're the steward, the guardian, the next player in a game that began long before you and will continue long after you're gone. But remember this, you didn't inherit this place because you're special. You inherited it because you were willing to be ordinary in the service of something extraordinary. You chose to teach instead of climb, to research instead of profit, to care instead of consume. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Gerald was never my opponent in this game. The opponent was always entropy, greed, short-term thinking, the human tendency to destroy what we don't immediately value. And the only way to win against that opponent is to build systems that outlast individual human lifespans, to create institutions that embody values instead of profits, to prove that protection is possible. You're proving it now. Keep proving it. Make this sanctuary so successful, so undeniable that the model spreads, that other communities build their own sanctuaries, that protection becomes the default instead of the exception. That's the real checkmate, Marcus, not defeating Gerald, changing the game itself. I'm proud of you. Your father would be proud of you. And more importantly, you should be proud of yourself. The game continues. Play it well. Theodore Bennett. I read the letter 3 times, then closed my laptop and just breathed. The ocean sounded eternal. The sanctuary lights glowed warm. Alina was still beside me, patient and present. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Everything's perfect," I said. "For the first time in my life, everything is exactly as it should be." And I meant it. My cousins had inherited things, mansions and yachts and investment accounts that turned to smoke. They'd gotten what they valued and discovered it was worthless. But I'd inherited something different. Not wealth, but work. Not possessions, but purpose. Not an ending, but a beginning. My grandfather had left me a compass that didn't point north. And by following it, I'd found true north anyway. Not a direction, but a destination. Not a place, but a calling. The smallest gift from the right person, given at the right time, for the right reason, had changed everything. They'd laughed when I inherited a rusty compass. They'd mocked me for being the poor cousin, the family failure, the one who got nothing. But I hadn't gotten nothing. I'd gotten everything that mattered, and that made all the difference. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning, and I was ready to play. True wealth isn't what you own, it's what you protect, who you serve, and the legacy you leave behind. The smallest gifts often carry the greatest treasures, but only for those patient enough to follow the compass, brave enough to solve the puzzle, and wise enough to understand that the real inheritance isn't things, it's purpose. And